Another day, another story. Why do we bestow people's names on volatile storms in the first place? For as long as people have been tracking and reporting hurricanes, also known as tropical cyclones, they've been struggling to find ways to identify them. Welcome to Taboo Eminent Channel. Until well into the 20th century, newspapers and forecasters in the United States devised names for storms that reference their time period, geographic location or intensity. Hence, the Great Hurricane of 1722, the Galveston Storm of 1900, the Labor Day Hurricane of 1935 and the Big Blow of 1913. Meanwhile, hurricanes in the tempestuous West Indies were named for the Catholic saints' days on which they made landfall. The pioneering Australian weatherman Clement Wragg began assigning names to tropical cyclones in the late 19th century, initially using the letters of the Greek alphabet and characters from Greek and Roman mythology. An eccentric and playful fellow, he later turned to the names of local politicians he particularly disliked. As a result, he was able to state in public forecasts that the officials were causing great distress, or wandering aimlessly about the Pacific. Needless to say, Wragg's subtly hostile approach didn't take the meteorology profession by storm. During World War II, U.S. Air Force and Navy meteorologists plotting storms over the Pacific needed a better way to denote hurricanes while analyzing weather maps. Many began paying tribute to their wives and girlfriends back home by naming tropical cyclones after them. In 1945, the newly formed National Weather Bureau, later the National Weather Service, introduced a system based on the military phonetic alphabet, but by 1953 the options had been exhausted. The next year, the Bureau embraced forecasters' informal practice of giving hurricanes women's names. Because America led the world in weather tracking technology at the time, many other countries adopted the new nomenclature. By the 1960s, some feminists began taking issue with the gendered naming convention. Most vocal among them was a national organization for women member from the Miami area named Roxy Bolton, whose many accomplishments throughout a lifetime of activism include founding women's shelters and rape crisis centers, helping to end sexist advertising, achieving maternity leave for flight attendants. In the early 1970s, Bolton chided the National Weather Service for their hurricane naming system, declaring, "Women are not disasters, destroying life and communities and leaving a lasting and devastating effect." Perhaps taking a cue from Clement Wragg, she recommended senators, who, she said, delight in having things named after them, as more appropriate namesakes for storms. In 1979, the National Weather Service and the World Meteorological Association finally switched to an alternating inventory of both men's and women's names. Bolton's senator-based plan was rejected, however, as was her proposal to replace the word hurricane, which she thought sounded too close to her-I-cane, with him-I-cane. In recent years, the lists of names, which are predetermined and rotate every 6 years, have been further diversified to reflect the many regions where tropical cyclones strike. Names of devastating storms with major loss of life and economic impact, such as Katrina in 2005 and Andrew in 1992, are permanently retired. Hurricanes have names for several practical reasons. Ease of communication. Giving hurricanes names makes it easier for people to communicate about them. Instead of referring to a storm by its technical designation, like Hurricane Category 4, XYZ, using a name simplifies communication, especially in emergency situations. It's easier to convey information and raise awareness when referring to a storm by a memorable name. Enhanced awareness and preparedness. When hurricanes are named, they tend to capture more attention from the general public. This increased awareness leads to better preparedness and response measures. Naming storms helps people take them more seriously and take appropriate precautions, such as evacuating or securing their property. Reduction of confusion. In regions where hurricanes are frequent, there can be multiple storms occurring simultaneously or in close succession. Naming hurricanes helps to distinguish between different storms and avoids confusion when discussing their impacts, paths, and potential risks. Historical tracking. By assigning names to hurricanes, it becomes easier to track and record their historical paths and impacts. This information is crucial for meteorologists, researchers, and emergency management agencies to analyze trends, improve forecasting models, and understand the behavior of hurricanes over time. International consistency. The World Meteorological Organization, WMO, manages the naming of hurricanes. They maintain lists of names for different regions around the world. Having a standardized system for naming hurricanes helps ensure consistency and clear communication among meteorologists, emergency responders, and the public, regardless of the country or region affected. Humanizing impact. Giving hurricanes names can also make them feel more relatable to people, which could lead to greater empathy for those affected. This can encourage individuals and communities to provide support and aid to affected areas. The practice of naming hurricanes dates back several decades, and it has proven to be a valuable tool for public safety and disaster management. It's worth noting that the naming of hurricanes alternates between male and female names and follows a predetermined list for each hurricane season. If a particularly damaging hurricane occurs, its name might be retired and replaced with a new name starting with the same letter, to avoid confusion with future storms. The naming of the storms. In a quaint coastal town named Harborville, the approach of hurricane season was always met with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. The townspeople knew the importance of staying prepared, but it was a tradition unlike any other that truly captured their attention: the naming of the storms. Every year, just before hurricane season kicked in, the local community would gather at the old town hall. The town's meteorologist, Dr. Amelia Carter, stood at the front of the hall, ready to unveil the list of names for the upcoming season. The anticipation in the air was palpable, as if the townspeople were waiting for their own personal introduction to the storms that might visit their shores. Dr. Carter explained the significance of the naming process. She spoke about how it made communication easier, how it encouraged preparedness, and how it turned these powerful natural phenomena into something relatable. The townspeople nodded in agreement, appreciating the way names transformed cold meteorological terms into stories of their own. As Dr. Carter unfurled the list, a sense of curiosity filled the room. The names were chosen from a combination of suggestions from the townspeople and the official list maintained by the World Meteorological Organization. Each name had its own unique charm, and the townspeople felt a connection to the storms that bore them. Over the years, the storms' names became part of the town's folklore. Stories were passed down about Hurricane Charlotte, who brought torrential rain but spared the harbor from severe flooding. Then there was Hurricane Leo, whose unexpected path left everyone scrambling for shelter. One year, a particularly devastating storm named Hurricane Emily wreaked havoc on Harborville. The memory of that storm haunted the community, and the decision was made to retire the name Emily from the list forever, a solemn recognition of the destruction it had caused. As the years went by, the town's relationship with hurricanes evolved. Dr. Carter's forecasts became more accurate, and preparation efforts improved. The town even organized hurricane preparedness workshops for newcomers, where they learned about the history of the storm names and the importance of readiness. Harborville's approach to hurricane season was no longer just about bracing for impact. It was about acknowledging the immense power of nature while also understanding the importance of human response. The storm's names became a reminder of resilience and unity, as the community banded together to face the challenges of nature head-on. And so, every year, as hurricane season approached, the townspeople of Harborville gathered once again at the old town hall. Dr. Carter would unveil the list of names, and a mix of emotions, respect, caution, and a touch of awe, would fill the air. The tradition continued, a testament to the enduring connection between humanity and the forces of the natural world. The Hurricane Namer. In the bustling city of Windridge, hurricanes were more than just weather events. They were a canvas for creativity, a thread of connection that wove through the lives of its residents. And at the heart of this unique tradition was a remarkable woman named Isabella. Isabella had always been fascinated by storms. As a child, she would watch lightning dance across the sky and dream of harnessing the energy of the wind. As she grew older, her passion led her to meteorology, where she excelled as a brilliant and imaginative scientist. One day, as Isabella was reading about the history of hurricane naming, an idea struck her like a bolt of lightning. She realized that the names given to hurricanes could be more than just labels. They could be stories, symbols, and reflections of the human experience. Isabella began crafting a proposal to the World Meteorological Organization. She suggested that, in addition to the traditional list of names, there could be a secondary list inspired by qualities that hurricanes exhibited. These names wouldn't replace the standard names but would offer an alternative perspective, giving hurricanes personalities and narratives that people could relate to. Her proposal was met with skepticism at first. But Isabella's passion was contagious, and her vision resonated with the meteorological community. After months of collaboration, the organization agreed to a trial run of Isabella's idea in the Windridge region. The day of the first named hurricane arrived, and the city was abuzz with excitement. Isabella stood before a crowd of reporters, meteorologists, and curious citizens as she unveiled the inaugural named hurricane, Hurricane Phoenix. This choice symbolized resilience, renewal, and the city's ability to rise from the challenges that storms brought. As Hurricane Phoenix approached, the city prepared not just with boards and sandbags, but with a shared determination to weather the storm and emerge stronger. The local schools even organized art projects where children drew their interpretations of Hurricane Phoenix, turning fear into creative expression. The experiment was a success. Isabella's approach added a new layer of connection between the community and the natural world. Hurricanes were no longer faceless phenomena but forces with names that carried meaning. People began to share stories of how they faced Hurricane Phoenix, forming a narrative of unity in adversity. The success led to the expansion of the idea beyond Windridge. Other cities adopted the concept of naming hurricanes after qualities or symbols, enriching the experience of hurricane preparation and response. With each named hurricane, a new story was woven into the collective memory of communities, reminding them of their strength and resilience. Isabella's legacy lived on, not just in the meteorological world but in the hearts of those who had experienced hurricanes in a new light. Her innovative approach transformed a routine tradition into a source of inspiration and solidarity, proving that even in the face of nature's fury, human creativity could shine as bright as the sun after the storm. Thanks for watching. Request you to subscribe the channel.